Good time zone, everybody. It's me, DjDoubleT, here and existing with a what's the word? A D&D rundown recap, yes, of session 4. Because we finally had our session 4 of D&D after a few weeks too many. But this session is somewhat shorter, somewhat I say, because I started late because life got a little busy. But here it is of what has happened in the D&D. So when we last left off, the characters, specifically Julius, Sage, and Tycho have pushed the statue of Nihilus to figure out the puzzle to get to the next floor. Today, one of our players could not make it, so I had to improvise. Soraya, for last session, also had to leave early, just to give quick notes. But back to this. So we finally go downstairs. Sage is not there. I'm there just to control Sage's character. Tycho's the one who decides to drag Pericles. Pericles being the curator of the museum. The real curator, not the one that's possessed by the shadow per se. Hi Seitsu, hello. Um, how's it going? But so dragged down, and so like this guy is wrapped up, trapped, and Tycho decides not to lift him, just to drag his body. And so they're going down 40 flights of stairs, and this guy is like bruised. No, I didn't make another rogue. I'm the DM, not the uh player. But yeah, so the guy goes thunk, thunk, thunk. And at that point, like the players don't fully remember what happened, so I had to give them like a recap of everything. And they're like, what's going on? Who has what? That Tycho is currently a buff wizard that is 2 feet shorter than they normally are because they drink a questionable potion. And yeah. So without further ado, let's dive in for the rest of like what is happening. So then they interrogate Pericles because they don't seem to remember what has happened again in the situation. Like who are you? Who hired us? And there's a little bit of confusion, but it seems that Tears, Terse, sorry, not Tears. Terse is the one who hired them for whatever reason, and that again, Pericles doesn't know what happened because he's just like the person who's like taking care of the museum. So like things kept getting more and more spooky per se, and he decides to investigate and then blacks out because something happens to him. Possession? Who knows? But so they enter exactly through. They're down there, right? And the flooring is pretty much exactly the same as the first floor. At least what it seems like. You know, a corridor straight down, and maybe a big hall at the very end, and also just like left and a right halls, things to explore, right? Strangely enough, it is actually well lit in comparison to the upper floor, like the ground floor itself. So, so Sage, since Sage is not there, we had Sage as like kind of like an APC player controlled by me, and Sage is kind of like watching over the guy. Uh, I believe Tycho and Soria go to the left side to investigate like what's on that side in that corridor. We call it corridor 1 or hallway 1, and Jazz does go to hallway 2. So on in the hallway 1, Soria and Tycho go up to the statue, and like they hear that the statue's like at the very end, and then they both say, "We're gonna walk closer," and that's when they like they try to read this plaque on the statue, like this knight statue, and that's when the floor goes click, 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 and then a mechanism activates where a door slams right in front of them, like drops from the ceiling, and then you hear a loud thud as they both have to make dexterity saving throws. Tycho gracefully like backflips out of the way of the scenario, while Soria unfortunately gets caught by shrapnel and gets blasted. I will also have to say our player Soria was also sick today, so I couldn't hear her speak, so we had to play it with her typing, like everything that happened. And I'm dead. Like no, you're not dead. Turns out that fun fact. So D&D Beyond for the players in their sheets, they get to see like what changes within their stats, but for the DM, you don't actually get to see it. At least I didn't get to see it because it showed them at full health. I was like, oh, they're all at full health. Everything's fine. But yeah, so that's what happens over there. They're kind of shell shocked. Soria's character's like, oh hell no. And the scenario's like, we're not dealing with this. On the other end, Julius, our bard, is interacting with a dagger, like two daggers, like on a weapon stand, and like decides to like hold things, investigate until the two daggers at least on the weapon stand start levitating and floating, and then we engage into initiative. Everybody, as like Julius relays the whole information of what's going on. So we get into the whole initiative order, battle starting. Julius is saying, "Can I grapple this dagger?" He tries to grapple the dagger, like, because it's a dagger, you can hold on to it, right? But no, he fails it. So they go into combat with like these daggers. These daggers kind of like slash at Julius a couple of times. Uh, there's like a frost wave happening, a frost blast. I always forget the spell. Wave of Frost, I think it was called. Whatever the name is. Since I'm really bad with remembering spell names. But yes, so there's like a whole fight. Julius is kind of looking a little rough. Sage heals him a little bit. And basically, the fight's good. They drop down. They're no longer moving, right? So Tycho and Julius decide to take the daggers along. Like, they want the daggers that were floating. Then we go off to the next, like a few steps forward. Tycho actually decides to like not join with the group and hangs out with Sage and Pericles, the guy who's bound up and tied, to make sure that he's no longer mystery, gonna cause any problems. Tycho says, "I'm gonna cast Detect Magic," so it can take like 10 minutes of ritual casting, and so they're doing like the whole spell cast, figuring out what's happening, and just detect magic of any sort. Let's see who went where. Okay, so Julius goes to quarter three, to the left, while Sordia goes to the right, uh, quarter four. Julius on quarter three goes up to this chest and like kind of just looks at it, questions it, then just opens it because it's not locked or anything, and obtains 4 potions of healing, like the weaker ones. And so nothing happens or anything eventful over there. Perfectly fine. On the other side, Sordia walks up, sees a chest, reads what's on the chest. The chest says, "Do not open." Right? Sordia was like, "No, absolutely not. I'm not. I'm not touching that." So Sordia goes off, gets Julius, and like, "Hey, Julius, what about this?" And as a DM, I'm like, "Do you guys want to open or not?" And then the moment Soria slash Jasmine hears that Jas slash Julius is going to open this chest, Soria was like, "All right, I'm dashing. I'm dipping the other way already. Like, prepare this action to dip." The moment Julius opens this chest that's radiating questionable energy, comes out a specter. A specter battle. As things kind of go awry. Taiko is like, I'm asking Taiko, like, do you detect this? Do you want to help out? Do you hear like all this screaming and the stuff that people are dipping? And Taiko's like, nah, if they're not in harm's way per se, then let it be. It's fine. uh, until it kind of gets pretty bad. Let's see, what happens to who? Ah, yes. So they engage in this whole battle. They're still in initiative, and the most notable thing of that scenario was the Spectre came up, used its ability, and sucked out some of our wizard's max HP, Tycho. And like I could feel the life getting sucked out of them, literally, as I think they lost 7 max HP. It was brutal. But things go back to normal, and Tycho's like, I'm gonna go back to doing this. And I cut it down because I thought, you already prepared it, you're already getting through it, but it's still gonna require some time. And because like Tycho didn't get much do much of like, can I do something now? Like combat does not last that long. Like each turn of combat is like a couple of seconds usually in D&D, unless you have somebody else who's like chill or changes the rules about it. Um, and then let's see what happens then. This time, as Taiko's still doing things, Julius and Soria goes off to the left side as they encounter a black coffin with like a cross on it. And like Soria's like, nah, I'm going the other way. Like starts going. Like she's like, I'm done. No. It's more of that, right? And Julie decides just to approach it and like touch it. And this is what stirs up like whatever's inside that coffin. And as it turns out, it is a skeleton. This skeleton is just like what comes out, it starts running towards where Soria is, and like Soria's like, God dang it, I tried to avoid this. Like that whole scenario. And unfortunately, like more combat happens, but turns out that like the skeleton isn't running for Soria at all per se, but it was upsetting. And like they were able to Soria and Jas were able to dispatch that skeleton quite easily. Like so easy. Cause it's like if you guys have seen the movie Scary Movie, it's like the scene of Cindy and what's her face? Let me look it up. I forgot. It's Cindy. What's her name? Uh, Brenda. Cindy and Brenda. In that situation, I want to say Jazz was Brenda. No, no, or like they both had it. Oh, but basically it's like the scene with like the skeleton comes up and Cindy's like running for her life, and Brenda's like, "Please let that skeleton get get her, get her." And that's not what happens. But everything gets solved perfectly fine. At this point, I believe now uh they get to investigate on the other side, which where they see this wooden donkey. Like Soria like touches it, kind of like tries to figure out. Nothing happens. Seems like there's nothing with this wooden donkey itself. Totally peaceful. This is where Taika probably like not probably comes back in, and because he's finished casting, and so Julius and Taika go off to the left to a quarter number 7, and uh, Soria goes off to quarter number 8. So that's where those two are gonna go into quarter number 7. They see like a sword in the stone and a sword on the wall, like a sword, yeah. And that's when they kind of get handsy, trying to figure out what's going on. One thing happens to another. Turns out the sword on the wall is a flying sword, and more combat ensues as they're struggling to beat a sword. Uh, Soria helps out like a little bit. She's like, "Fine, I'll help out just a little. Like, here's one spell here, just one, just to assist, you know." And so they obtain a sword. Well, a sword, the big sword, and then the sword in the stone. But it seems like the sword in the stone is different than the sword on the wall. Then Soria goes back to her thing, and she's like the small little tin soldier. Like it's cute, it's small, it's adorable, and it's like just there saluting, moving around, and like Soria's very cautious about it, like touching it, and like if you can lift it. But it seems like it doesn't want to go with her. It like squirms and tries to get out of her. It's like because I guess Soria wants to keep it. Like I feel like every small thing so far, Soria wants to keep it from uh from our spirit guardian. Oh, what's his name? Finnick, and to other things that she may or may not have. Anywho's, then they all decide, okay, that's all good. This is done. They're gonna go to quarter number 7, not 7, number 9 altogether to the left, right? And to the left is another chest, but this time the chest is locked. And Julius has lockpick king, picks it open, and then sees that there is dust, sand, and like a sack. Hi, Water Marlin, how's it going? But they're trying to grab some stuff, right? And like when you see a bag of dust or sand, normally, normally speaking, you would probably not sniff it, snort it, taste it, and whatnot. I know, but Julius decides to bring the sack, sniff it, and that was the worst thing that could have happened. Luckily, he made the Constitution saving throw because, as it turns out, this pocket sand is actually, uh, what's it called? Uh, it is the dust of sneezing and choking. Because if Jazz had started sneezing right then and there, he would have blown some of that powder and dust toward where Soria and Taiko were, and they would have had a whole moment of sneezing, coughing, and choking, and yeah. Good thing we had the NPC Sage if things went wrong, because Sage is our cleric. Oh, and I guess a quick reminder of everybody's classes. We have a Soria is our warlock, Julius is our bard, Taiko is our wizard, and Sage is our cleric. We all got spellcasters around this team. But yes, and they find after that whole like small shablang, they go to quarter number 10, the right side, and on the pedestal is an Azurite, as they've seen. And like they're so skeptical. They're like, everything we've gone through pretty much has activated something. So like they're searching, nothing seems to happen. And like I'm asking like, so do you guys want to grab it or not? And they're looking at me like really, maybe not. But this is where like I think Julius and Sori were like, you know what, never mind, we'll just grab it. And so one of them does, nothing happens. And then we go to the final room, the very big room at the end of that giant hall, past all like the extra side rooms, right? And the room looks exactly similar to what they saw on the first floor. At the very end of the hallway, the 19 gods of the Pantheon, at least that they know of, are around like a bunch of statues. But the significant difference is that from a historical check and memory, Foe and Nihilus were. So Foe is the god of opening, and Nihilus is the god of closing. They are both facing each other in the original plot. But this time around, Nils is faced the other way, while Foe is faced toward the center. Everybody else is faced toward the center. And in the center is like this kind of like weird statue of like armor, kind of a little ominous, and this orb that it's holding. And I, and then at that point, all the weapons that I guess they also decided to. No, we already mentioned this, but all the animated swords and daggers decided to come back to warring life. The Spectre's dead, nothing to worry about. The Skeleton's also dead, and the Shade Terrace is like trying to absorb them, like their mana, just to become a bit more powerful. Like just like this dark energy entity. And so we get off to this giant battle. But luckily, the battle's a bit quicker in its own right. So because Tycho has cast Detect Magic, can tell that the magic is getting absorbed into this orb. Although I didn't fully convey that the best I could have, I would say. But that's what happens right there. And there's a dagger, like a flying dagger next to Julius, one next to Tycho, and the big sword that got. Actually, they did not take the big sword. The big sword was actually lodged into a corner because they were like, we're done. But it's come back. They go into this huge combat. They're getting attacked from here and there. They target the orb because like this is the issue. So pretty much once the orb is done, because like they blasted it, they fireball, they magic missiled, they lots of spells basically. The orb shatters. The shade is shadow is like having issues with it and is like pissed off. The shadow attacks Julius, and it turns out it can actually sap away your power, like strength. That's not a power, strength if it attacks you, based on a certain ability. And so now we got like a sapped Julius a bit. But luckily, the battle ends pretty easily. Not much too worse for her, maybe a little low. And we get really, really close to like the end of our session. And that's where like we searched. I asked my players, do you want to search through any of the floors, do anything? And, or if they want anything from like the top floor. And Soria was like, I want my coin back. Because last time in our session, Soria was, what's the word? Soria had to make a donation, a giving of one coin to kind of like just enter the museum. I was like gonna pause it because the guy was like, "I still want to charge you for entering," and everyone's like, "No." So Soria finds where it is, the safe, and then tries to break a register, and then Tiger's like, "No, I have a spell for this." Like I think it's like it's like a type of opening spell, basically can force anything open, and it opens there, and they're able to get a few more coins. And then they see that one thing they didn't notice before they came in was this banner that includes 5 characters, like a apparently the founders of the museum itself. So there you have Agatha, a ruffled haired human in green, Ruby, a red doggo with spots, Ted, a buff elf with an ascot, Danger, a Tasmanian devil in purple and pastel shoes, and Wilma, an older elf in orange. But I think you guys all know where that reference is from. And then they're like, "So, do we not get a reward?" And I'm like, how do you guys? I had to ask them, like, if you want to get a reward, where do you go for the rewards? Hi, Bookie. How's it going? But if you want to get rewards, where do you guys go? I kind of had to baby them for that. I'm like, the adventurer skill. And then they're given like a short rest, and that is where the session ends. Session 5 will pick up in 2 more weeks, basically. And I can't wait to see where that goes. I need to write it more. And at some point, we will kick back into that. And maybe next session will be live. Who knows? I'll have to talk to my players about it. But that is it for the D&D Rundown recap. I would like to thank everybody who came by for this section as I switch off to the next thing I need to do for tonight. But thank you, Seitu, Watermelon, Watermelon, Lord Inari, and the Bucky. And if you see this on YouTube and you actually want to see this live, or just hear about the story or talk about D&D stuff, feel free to come to Twitch. But for now, let me switch things so I can find the things I need to get done. So I'll be right back.